Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have a single story for you with an epic 2-year later update from the JustNoHOA subreddit. Before we start, this video is sponsored by my 3D printing website. Check out dangly3d.com where you can get your hands on your own 3D printed Carmen Chameleon channel mascot. And yes, it comes complete with cookies. We've got a bunch of other items on there right now as well, like these adorable kitty earrings, even some cute penguin earrings, this keychain, this keychain, this keychain, and this keychain, and a bunch of different dragons as well. Check them all out on my website, dangly3d.com, linked in the description down below. Alright, on to the stories, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Spurred One Last Time. Vindictive ex-wife illegally signed application to local HOA in my name. I'll start this off by saying my ex is vindictive as heck. We've been fully divorced since about right before the pandemic started. We sold the house we shared, and I didn't have to pay her alimony because she cheated and we're in an at-fault state. It was messy since D-Day. All of the stereotypes, first the sobbing, and then trickle truth saying, "I love you, it was just one time, it was 2 years," and then gaslighting followed by, "I'm gonna take you for everything," before packing our crap and walking out. I feel like I never really knew the woman my ex was in all the time we were together. We were married 5 years and together for 7, and in 2 of those 5 married years, she had affairs with 3 other men. The final one being a foreign businessman of some sort, from what I could find out. Yes, I got tested for STDs and was thankfully negative. Yes, she got pregnant by the final affair partner. And no, I didn't sign the birth certificate, because I found out about all the affairs before the baby was born, thanks to a call from the first affair partner. My ex tried to go full scorched earth on me, but since we live in and were married in an at-fault state, she lost. We didn't pay equally into our house, and the equity was divided 70-30. So I got a pretty good cash payout when I sold our marital home to put as a down payment on a different house closer to my job. It's a bit of a downgrade, but suits a single guy in his 30s like me just fine. My ex did show up to my house once, but I refused to let her in. She beat at me that I'd financially ruined her in the divorce. I said that she was fully willing to do that to me first, and the B had the audacity to say it should have been my life effed over and not hers. I laughed so hard and said it was karma. She yelled that she'd sue me for what was rightfully hers. I said if she was going to sue me, then to go ahead and sue me. It'd end up the same way in court because she has nothing but a false sob story. She was the cheater, not me. I'm no angel, but I didn't do anything to her, and she was the one who ruined our marriage. She then said she'd tell everyone she could that I abused her. I said I'd sue her for defamation if she did, and I was recording our interaction and had those words saved to my phone. She went wide-eyed and her jaw dropped. The look people are calling the surprised Pikachu face. Then I asked why she was there, if not to just try and make trouble, because she had a new man in her life that knocked her up. She just huffed at me and said he isn't around much and she's stuck in a tiny apartment living off his child support till he comes back. It was immature of me, I know, but I did the bit of playing the world's smallest violin. She yelled at me to go F myself, and I yelled back that I'd sooner do that than her anytime. She raged at me and then got in her car to leave. Haven't seen her since. There is an HOA in my neighborhood, but I was not legally obligated to join it because the last owner of my house was not a member. I made sure of that through a real estate lawyer as well. The HOA had no grounds to force me to join and were not happy about it. The HOA president would show up with forms every week for the first month, demanding I sign them. Then she threatened to take me to court, to which I had to get a cease and desist sent to her from my lawyer to make her stop that. So she started harassing me by looking for any infractions she possibly could to report to the city. An inspector came out several times and found nothing wrong. In fact, I offered one of them a burger while grilling, and they graciously accepted. Did I mention the HOA hates barbecues and parties that aren't approved in advance? Well, they do. And I like to grill when the weather is good. And my neighbors actually love me for it because I invite them over. I had the police called on me several times for noise complaints because I was playing music on a Saturday afternoon while having my friends over. The HOA president I caught trespassing once when she was trying to peer into my windows. I called the police, but she denied ever doing it, so I got cameras. She hasn't trespassed since. But I still got repeated passive-aggressive letters saying my cameras were not an approved addition to my house. Some months ago, I started getting letters for fines in the mail, and when I contacted the HOA, their representative claimed they had it on record that I joined and needed to pay all fees effective immediately. I told them that was not possible. Then they emailed a scanned copy of the forms, and they had a signature on them, but it was not mine. It was very similar in some ways, and I recognized right away as being my ex's handwriting. She knew what my signature looked like, but it was a loose imitation at best. I got in touch with a lawyer right away over the forged signature, but the HOA still demanded to go to court, and it took 7 months before that happened. Meanwhile, they were stacking unpaid fines against me weekly and were threatening to put a lien on my house. We went to court and the HOA president looked very smug, but my lawyer pointed out how the signature wasn't the same as mine and was very inconsistent in the various forms. I'd never allowed the HOA president in my house, and I'd never requested the forms. The idiot HOA president actually slammed her palm on the table and said it was still binding. But when pressed where the fraudulent signature came from, she admitted my ex-wife called the HOA and they sent her the forms, then got them back in the mail signed. But then she actually claimed she'd thought I'd signed them. The judge looked at her and asked if she was serious. She confirmed she was. The judge then asked how a woman I was no longer married to, that had never even lived with me in my current residence, was supposed to have any bearing on whether or not I joined her HOA. She went quiet, and I could see the oh crap look on her face as the hamster wheels were turning, and she seemed to finally mentally put the pieces together. My lawyer then counterclaimed that what the HOA did was blatant fraud, and legal actions must be taken, and they were. I countersued the HOA for the emotional distress of the harassment I'd gotten since moving in, which I had lots of proof of. That won me about 10 grand after lawyer fees that I decided to put towards my mortgage. The HOA president was removed from her throne. I like to think she was kicking and screaming. She was also slapped with a hefty fine. I've seen her outside a few times and she always looks at me like I am the devil. The HOA itself had to pay all of my legal fees too. I wanted to go after my ex for forging my signature, but can't because not long after she forged my signature on those forms, she apparently left the country to be with her third affair partner. She's somewhere in Europe from what I can see of the final post on her Facebook before she disappeared. So I can't do anything against her unless she ever returns to the US. So that was a wash. I'm not getting letters from the HOA anymore though, and the new president has promised to keep things completely cordial from now on. I still don't feel like I got much of a win in this though. Other than the $10,000 payout, it all felt like a huge waste of time. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Sean BZA. It says, still lay the forgery charges with the added bonus of this being mail fraud and thus automatically in the USA a federal offense. Then they will simply tell DHS about the arrest warrant and put the evidence in cold storage, waiting for her to appear on a flight and get flagged for arrest as she enters the country again. Might take a year or 3 before she does actually trigger it, but with the HOA case as evidence, and the admission from the HOA president in court records, slam dunk for wire fraud. The damages are all the HOA fees and fines, plus all attorney costs, plus the penalty, plus any time you spent on fighting this at your official rate at work or contracting, all adding up to enough to give her a few years in a federal hotel. This will be a time bomb waiting to trigger in the future when she thinks all is long over. 30 years is the prescription time for this, so she will still be on the hook till she is at retirement age. OP responded to this one and said, "You make an excellent point. I'll make sure the charges get filed. Thanks. Still, as much as I'd love to see my ex get arrested for it, I really don't want her coming back. Europe can have her wherever she is." I can definitely see OP's point of view on that one. I would want her to stay overseas as well and just never come back. Enjoy your time over there. Toodaloo. Bye-bye. At least if OP does file the charges, then she'll have to pay the price for her crimes whenever she comes back. And that's exactly what she does. So let's get into OP's update from 2 years later. Alright, OP's update is from 1 month ago and it's titled, "My vindictive ex-wife who committed fraud in my name by signing me up for an HOA and then jumped ship returned to the US. She was immediately arrested and incarcerated. The wheel turns, but the hamster is long dead." That's the best way to describe the stupidity of my ex-wife and her parents. My ex was dumb enough to come back to the US, even though there were fraud charges waiting for her here. Since I posted some time ago about my ex-wife, I feel I owe it to everyone here to provide an update. So to give a quick recap, I posted a couple of years ago about how my ex forged my signature on HOA forms to try and F me over for divorcing her. And then she ran off to Europe to avoid charges before I had a chance to file them. Even her social media went dark, so I figured she'd left for good. However, her affair partner, who'd knocked her up, eventually kicked her and their kid out. Then they came back to the US after my ex begged her parents to buy them tickets home. I guess the affair partner just wanted her as a side piece that he could toss out like a used doll once he was done with her. I kinda don't blame him for kicking her out because she's evil, but at the same time, he booted out his own kid too. If that's what he intended to do from the start, then he's just one of the worst kinds of people. The fraud case was obviously still open against my ex, and she got arrested not long after coming back into the country because her passport was flagged, and police were there to arrest her on landing. When I finally saw her in court, she looked very different. She'd put on weight, she couldn't dye her hair or cake her face in makeup anymore, and there was just this aura of defeat about her. Not long after she was arrested, her parents showed up at my house and pleaded with me to drop any charges I could, and then even had the audacity to ask me to take my ex back. Of course, I refused, but it was in one ear and out the other with them. I visited my ex at jail only once because her parents hounded me for weeks, and she put on the same kind of pitiful, "I love you, feel sorry for me" act as when I first confronted her with evidence of her infidelity. I told her she couldn't be serious after the crap she pulled. She never really loved me. She cheated on me with 3 men that I knew of, and possibly more. She got pregnant by another man and had no remorse about how she destroyed our marriage. Then she maliciously tried to defame me, and she illegally signed me up for an HOA by forging my signature. And for the cherry on top, she ran away to another country like the pathetic cowardly beast she is. And she somehow hoped I would take her back after all of that? Well, that was enough to make her see that she had zero chance of manipulating me. Even if hell froze over, I'd not take this woman back in any way. Her parents also couldn't really argue with my reasoning, other than repeatedly saying she's their only daughter and the mother of their only grandchild. Her mother kept crying that my ex could change. I said she could change without me. I'm done with her. Then they tried the stupidest thing yet. They told me my ex and I were still married in the eyes of God, and that I have to help her because it's the Christian thing to do. I asked them what the Bible said about infidelity if they were going to bring religion into it, and they shut up. I then slammed the door in their faces. They still hounded me till I called police on them, and then got my lawyer to send a cease and desist to my ex's parents to stop trying to contact me, or I'd file charges against them too. That finally stopped them, but I do kinda wonder if they'll try to pursue child support from the father of my ex's kid since they are stuck raising them now, if that's even possible. What with the father being in a different country and all, and on the move a lot from what I heard. My ex could not be bailed out of jail by her parents because she was denied that option since already being guilty of fleeing once. And even if she did have a set bail, I bet it would have been so high there's no way her parents could have paid it. My ex originally pled not guilty, but I think her lawyer convinced her to change it to guilty for a lesser sentence. Only problem for her was the judge presiding over the trial was a real hard butt, and they charged my ex with felony fraud for forging my signature and mailing it, as well as knowingly fleeing the country to avoid charges. She got hit with a decent sentence of nearly a decade behind bars, no parole. By the time she gets out of prison, she'll be 42 years old. She broke down sobbing on the floor and had to be dragged out. I won't miss her. I think justice was served. I wasn't ecstatic about it or anything because I'd emotionally moved on from that woman long ago. And I've become happier because I've been dating a great woman for the past 6 months. She's a single mom and works as a clerk. Honestly, I already think I love her more than I ever did my ex. Her son seems to like me a lot too. His own dad is someone I haven't heard great things about. If anyone was still wondering about the HOA, they've kept their promise and left me alone. But I've heard that behind closed doors, the old board that were all inevitably replaced hate my guts because I basically started their downfall. Yes, the entire board was eventually replaced, and the new board are running things far better now. Fines nearly stopped, monthly dues were lowered, several rules were removed from the CCNRs, and the street has been a happier place for a year now. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Gaius Daughter. It says, "Seems like it all turned out well, except for the son, I guess. Poor kid. That father really effing sucks. If you don't want kids, don't effing have them." Another commenter down below called Sue Elliker says, "The grandparents will probably try to twist things to say that you should pay child support." OP responded and said, "If they did that, I'd call my lawyer. I was one step away from filing for a restraining order after sending the cease and desist. But at this point, I think they realize it's moot to try and manipulate me for anything. My ex's kid is not and will never be my problem." The commenter was very right on this one. I can't help but feel sorry for that kid. They're the one who is really losing out in this situation. They're losing their mother, their father already doesn't want them, and it sounds like they're going to be raised by their grandparents, who seem to be fairly delusional as well. OP, you're still gonna have problems with this in 10 years when your ex gets out of jail. She's gonna be in there that whole time thinking about how she was wronged in the whole situation. And I'm willing to bet you get contacted by her within a few weeks of her getting out. I for one can tell you we really appreciate this 2-year update, and now I'm really looking forward to the 10-year update. Did you know every KCC video is uploaded in podcast form as well? Search for Karma Comment Chameleon on every major podcasting platform. Thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.